Teaching the truth in love. Telling like you. Well, happy Sunday, church. I'm in the Pathfinder with my good friend James Kennard.
Hello, hello, hello.
We thought we'd do something a little bit different today for Bible class. James and I go back to 1993. We're old, bro. I mean,
well, you're still younger, so
by a couple of years, not a lot, but no. James and I kind of met each other through the AIM program, Adventures in Missions. Many of you are familiar with it over there at Sunset, and man, James has been a friend, a mentor, just so many things to me and to my family for a long, long time now. And so really blessed to have James. He's got a wealth of wisdom in the educational world, but in God's Word, he's been a minister, missionary, vocational minister for decades now. I mean, a long, long time that he's, I guess, kind of born and raised in the church.
Yeah, yanked up. One of our friends used to say, yeah, sometimes, but yeah, lifetime.
Kind of a lifetimer. Yeah. And so I think James will have a very unique perspective on today's subject. We're in our study on the go statements of Jesus, the 13 go statements. We started in the first one talking about Matthew 28, go and make disciples. We've talked about different things in that going. We talked about, last week we talked about how you go. This week we'll talk actually a little bit about who to go to. And we know that the vision in Acts 1 verse 8, Jesus said, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. So everybody's included. This has always been God's vision since the beginning. We know that he loves everybody and wants everybody to be saved. The promise to Abram in Genesis 12, you'll be a blessing to all people, ultimately through Jesus, but all people. First Chronicles 17, Solomon's prayer for the temple, that even the foreigner could look and pray, and that God would hear their prayers. So there's always been this throughout the Old Testament, especially into the New with Jesus in several passages, like in John 3:16. God so loved the world, not a particular race or just a particular group of people, but everybody. So we understand that. But today we're going to look at this idea in lesson 6 of going to the lost sheep of Israel. James, you read this story about the woman, and you know this story because you've lived it out 100 times. The woman that comes to Christ, and everybody gives their all to see this woman come to Jesus. And then when she becomes a Christian, they kind of leave her, as we say, to drip dry. Yeah. She's just kind of left, and maybe we helped babysit the kids, and we watched them, and we took her meals, and we did this and we did that. But then over time, it just kind of faded. And I'm reminded of the passage in Luke 15 where Jesus leaves the 99. He gives the story about leaving the 99 sheep for the one. I wanted to kind of start off, James, just by batting around this idea of why does the one slip through the crack? What is it that allows that to happen all too frequent? Because again, it doesn't really matter the church, it doesn't matter the denomination. Everywhere we've all seen this, heard this, and unfortunately personally experienced this, where we see a brother or sister come to Christ and then they fall away. What is it that happens there? Why does that happen? What do you think?
You don't want to be so cliche or simplistic and just say life happens. But a lot of times life does happen. And backing up just a little bit, we are good, as the illustration was and as what you just said. We most of the time, we're really good at wanting to get that one in. We do the resources. We send people around the planet and across town, and we do all we can to get someone to get them in, get them into Christ, bring them up, and at that point we lose. There's so much in the New Testament when it comes to forgiveness and blood washing and the light and all these things that they're ongoing, and we miss that a lot in our evangelistic fervor. We forget that to make a disciple is to keep discipling. To be a disciple of Jesus is to not only make them, but to keep people saved as well and encourage them that way. And we kind of, I don't know why. But that's where life comes in, and that's where time slips away, and that's where we miss a phone call and it turns into a few days, a few weeks. Someone misses a worship or a small group, and then next thing we know, it's been years since we've seen someone or been around someone.
Yeah, all too often I've heard people say, well, I've been gone for 3 months. I've been gone for 6 months. Why are you calling me all of a sudden? And it's like, man, I'm sorry. I've been busy. My mom was in the hospital, or, my kid was sick, or we were out of town or whatever. And like you mentioned, quickly the one Sunday becomes 2 or a month, or before we know it, that can happen. And so it is important to note who's not here and when and why. And is it just a vacation? Is it, some kind of health issue that they're having, or a family member? There's so much there. I want to talk to you specifically about the demographic, that college age demographic, the 18 to 22. You have, let's see, Jay's in that demographic.
Yes.
And then where's
Jay's 18, Kira's 23, Timothy's 25,
so she's just
and we're all about to have birthdays here in a couple of months. So,
okay, very cool. So about to go up one more. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have 2, obviously. Madison's 19 and Mason's 21 and Madison's 19.
Yeah.
But that high school, college age demographic, man, it's so many of those slip through the cracks. Of course, when you go off to wherever you go to school, it's really easy for them to, mom and dad aren't here.
Exactly.
I start having Dr. Pepper and donuts every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Exactly.
And, there's no accountability or anything at school. Or, unfortunately, and this is not a shot at our Christian colleges, because God bless those, but sometimes there's kind of this pseudo-Christianity of, well, I go to chapel. Well, I have a Bible class every week, and so why do I need to be attached to a body or whatever? But I want to talk to you for a minute about that demographic. What is it that they need? What is it that they're looking for? Is that the same? Is that different? What's your theory? What's your experience? What have you seen on that just huge falling out that we have? This book argues up to 75%.
Yes,
I've heard 50 very often. But, this group that just kind of leaves home and falls off the face of the earth.
And that's exactly what it seems like. It's just folks disappear, and it seems to be quick. The 19 to 22, that college age demographic, really in some senses of the word, some senses of the demographic, it's not any different from any other demographic. People are designed for connection. People are designed for community. Our culture, I think we're getting a little better, just culture in general, Western culture, especially U.S., Southwest, Texas, West Texas, we're very individualistic.
Sure.
And so not only am I individualistic, but I'm individualistic sometimes for other people. Well, I don't want to bug them. I don't want to bother them. And,
gotcha.
and it's good intentions. It's just like, we worked hard to get that lady saved, but, we don't want to be too much. We don't want to overwhelm her, and all that. But I know, I have my background, my educational background is in Christian colleges and state schools with campus ministries. And you see all of it everywhere. It's a universal struggle that kids have. And my kids have had both Christian college and campus ministry experience in a state school. Again, it gets down to community and design. One thing we've done with the COVID era that we're maybe coming out of, I don't know.
Oh man, I hope
don't know
so.
if we're going to double dip or not. Is we've proven with technology. We couldn't be around each other. We couldn't see each other. We didn't see each other for months.
Yeah.
But through technology, we kept up with folks, and we've proven it's not our best. It shouldn't be our go-to forever. But it's a good supplement. And so, just checking on people. We're wired again to connect. We're wired. We're designed by God. We're created His image for community, for connection, and we have to be willing to do it. I don't want to get all too warm and fuzzy, but agape love is a decision, non-emotional decision that you make for the good of someone else. Sometimes I may be, you've checked on me when it was uncomfortable and you didn't think I would want it, and it was life-saving. And so there's times where we might just have to bite the bullet and get over, or I should say, I have to bite the bullet, get over myself, and just jump in and let that person know I love them I want to connect with them. I want to, go get a Coke or, play a game online or, whatever it is, some kind of connection that I want to do that. And again, we're talking specifically about that college age range, but I believe it's for any age range. We're told to go, and we're told to keep going as well.
That's good. Yeah, I think you're right. I think people want that connection. Sometimes, as you mentioned, we kind of get to that, well, he's kind of an introvert, or she wants her privacy or whatever else, and so we kind of pull back maybe when we should maybe lean in a little bit and just kind of, hey man, I just want to check on, I just care about you. I got nothing in this except you're good, and so, yeah, very good. Well, again, our context is from Matthew 10, where Jesus is sending out his disciples, and he says something really interesting there, along about verse 5 or 6. He says, don't go to the Gentiles, don't go to the Samaritans, go to the Jews. And so back to this whole God wants everybody to be saved, it seems to contradict that, but he says, I want you to go to the lost sheep of Israel. Just the people that God's people, the descendants of Abraham that don't know, go to them and tell them that the kingdom of God is coming. And I think there's a principle, at least in there. I know it's not a direct command to us, but there is a principle of going and finding those who were once saved, and now they've kind of, like you said, life happens, different things drive them away. And so again, I want to keep on this idea of and how many churches have listed, even at Greenlawn, we have, I don't know, 900 or so that, well, pre-COVID, 900 or so that are coming in. We've got like 1,500 on the books. Yeah. And you're like, where are these? Are they rotating out? I remember in Mexico, and again, you've experienced this in Russia and other places. The books are always, the people that have been baptized, have given their life to Christ, are always way more than the ones that attend. How can we be more attentive to this? What do you think are some things that maybe we could put into place to not only go and rescue those that have once loved Christ but fallen away or grown cold, but even just keep them? I mean, and this is the age-old question. We're not going to solve it in one trip around the loop, but I mean, we can at least encourage each other in this and see what are some ideas that we need to re-explore to keep people. I mean, what needs to happen there?
Well, in that text, they were in training, and he limited, but what, we used to call it the limited commission, and they had the Great Commission. Right. It was a training period, but the principle is there, not just to keep people saved, or not just to save people, but to keep people saved. Later on, as you mentioned on the South Loop, we have the statement in Acts, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the end of the earth, and there we have folks that are just like you, kind of like you, sort of like you, not anything like you. Yeah. We're responsible for everybody, but when we talk about people that are within our group, our church, our fellowship, however you want to say it, I don't know, again, if this is a solution. It may just be kind of like sometimes in politics, people just point out the problem again. But that's what world we live in. Sure. But sometimes people, we don't want to. That passage, and then kind of the echoes of Luke 15 and the lost sheep. The shepherd, he left that 90 and 9. We're so enamored sometimes with the 99. Yeah. I said it like Sunday school when I was a kid, the 90 and 9. Like Maybell taught us in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. But the 99, I've got to want. We'll take risk with anything. We'll take risk with our business. We'll take risk with our families, with our politics, with our culture. And for some reason, we stove up, as old timers would say, we stove up when it comes to reaching out, or to, don't want to bother them, or we want to play a conservative, or we don't want to be judgmental. We want whatever it is, but we have to want to go after that one. I've said in a leaders meeting, I don't want to say shepherd. I want to say, I need to say leader. I can't do the other. But the leader said, my only responsibility is to pray for you. Hope it goes. He said, good luck.
Wow.
The other leader said, well, we got to keep that out. And the thing is when people say that is in no way. And I always taught my kids there's a difference between judgment and judging. Okay, my judgment is they don't have a clue about Jesus's heart. Jesus that so loved the world that he came, and then later on, he didn't come to condemn.
Right.
He came to save.
Right.
And if first of all, we've got to be sold out and give up and some all the different terminology we use, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We have to be that so that the world can know, yes, but so that we can keep ourselves secure and safe. Living in a country that has Western influence, Judeo-Christian, Christendom influence, sometimes we get a little comfortable and we kind of look at evangelism and saving folks as get everybody moral and everybody kind of like us.
Yeah.
We get so comfortable with that if something happens that causes someone to struggle or to leave or to fall, let's call it what it is, we get so offended by that all of a sudden circle the wagons, contend for the faith, and and we forget Jesus went after the one.
Yeah.
If we don't go after the one, basically what we're saying is, Jesus, you need us to protect the 99. We don't trust you. That the gates of hell will prevail if I leave this and I go after this one.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul said, hey, be careful, don't get so close to the fire, and watch out, and don't get singed and all that stuff.
Right.
I'm sorry, Jude, but
I was thinking of Galatians 6, where it says those of you who are mature ought to go and restore.
Yeah. And so, well, again, it's in various passages, so the principle is there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess it gets back to am I going to trust Jesus enough? If I'm a leader, okay, or if I'm a leader in a congregation, or if I'm a leader in a group, will I trust Jesus enough that my 99 are going to be okay, that I can take the risk and go after the one? I think it's a matter of trusting him. We kind of get Mr. Fix-It sometimes and think that it's all about us.
Yeah.
That comes from a good place. We want to serve and we want to do what's best.
Sure.
But there was an old songbook back in the day floated through our brotherhood, and there was some readings in it. And I remember one was a little kid because I was enamored by it. He said, "God's always going to have people." And it was about midway through the book. It was just set in the middle of some short songs, and God's always going to have a people. Basically, the underlying message was, it's up to you whether you're going to be part of it or not. And so I need to trust God enough to know he's going to take care of his people. I need to go out and fulfill my commission. I had a second point, but I've forgotten what it was. So.
Oh, that's all right. You're all right. Yeah. I think about in Matthew 10:8, just a little bit further down, when Jesus is sending them out, he's telling them to, it's like heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the leper, cast out demons. So you got those 4 things there, and we're not going to do miracles. I mean, that's not what we're talking about. But again, when we think about principles, how does that play into this? Go to the lost sheep of Israel. Go to the one that's fallen away. When he talks about healing and raising and cleansing and casting out, what applications are there? Any principles in that for us?
It may not be miracle, but it may be miraculous what it does.
Okay.
The illustration I was thinking of a while ago, what that person that was under discussion, what they needed to hear was that God loves you, God's not leaving you, God wants you, we do too. That's what and so again, if I'm loving, if I'm agape-ing, pardon the grammar, if I'm agape-ing, I'm asking, what does that person need? And so, Jesus gave a list of things for them to do, and like you said, it was serving them. It's hard, again, our culture, sometimes we're more Christendom than kingdom. Sometimes our culture it's really hard to serve someone because we're actually submitting. And it's a lot easier to say, well, we're keeping the church pure, or we're not going to bother them, or, good luck, go away, whatever.
Yeah.
And instead of taking the risk of, I want to serve you. What do you need from me? There's times where we love doing that. And then there's times where it's very, very risky to do that. And God understands, again, those warnings that were there, those encouragements that were there. But yeah, Jesus, he knew what both sides needed. He knows what that person that's struggling needs, and he knows what the person that's trying to serve him can do, and that's anything through him.
Yeah, good. So there's this, I guess maybe there's a rebellion even sometimes in our heart, not necessarily intentional, but again, our objective is to protect the saved, keep the saved saved in that. But I think also there's this need of, yes, I need Jesus. Yes, Jesus is the answer. But man, I also got to eat, so bring me a sack of groceries sometimes.
Exactly.
Or help me with my rent. Or I've got this potential for a better job. I'm a single mom. If you could watch my kids for an hour or two, if there was, different things like that we can, it's really practical. And like you said, it might not be a miracle, but God can do the miraculous through that effort of outreach and service. That's good. Well, hey, I'm thinking too about Matthew 28. In Matthew 28, 18 through 20, Jesus says, I've got all the authority. And in verse 19, we kind of get hung up there. It's funny because I see at least 3 parts to that, in my opinion. 3 parts, because the kind of as you go to me is kind of, well, you're going to go through life, so do that. But then he says, make disciples, baptize them, teach them to obey everything. And so we're really good at that kind of middle one, if you will, if there's 3, we struggle sometimes in the making disciples as a movement, as the church, as the Church of Christ, really into baptism. But man, when it comes to teach them to obey, I think this is the challenge that we face, because sometimes we'll go, well, hey, we got Bible class. I mean, what else do you want from us? We've got a preacher that gives us a good word every week. He shares all kinds of scriptures. What else do you want? How does this play out in the, again, if we talk about keeping them or even going to get them, how does that last part specifically of teaching them obedience, how does that play out in all this?
I think you got to go back to the word disciple. And with all due respect, we don't have a clue.
Sure.
When I'm talking about careers and stuff with my kids at school, well, one of the option, trade school, immediate workforce, college, military, and I always throw on apprenticeship. And there's certain segments of where I teach. We have about 4 or 5 cultures going all the time, and there's one segment of the kids that understand what an apprentice is, which is really what a disciple was. A disciple would attach themselves to the master of the craft or the merchant or whatever it was, so much so that they would replace that person. They became that person. So, I should have attached myself. My dad was a builder and a furniture maker, and so I should have attached myself to him to where I could have been a builder or a furniture maker. That's what I would have been a couple thousand years ago.
Sure.
I would have been his disciple. And so when we teach someone to obey everything, we kind of have, again, our background and our culture kind of gets in the way, and we think academic. And that's part of it. I mean, Paul had his lecture halls and his 18 months and his 2 years and his his tent making and all that stuff. But he also usually had somebody with him that he was pouring into. There was a Titus, there was a Silas, there was a Luke, there was a Timothy. There was someone all the time he was pouring into. In fact, the Bible trivia, the only time he's troubled is when he's by himself. So there was a team concept besides the apprenticeship there. But when I want to teach my children to obey, if I want to teach a church to obey, one, Jesus has all authority, so we get nervous about that. Jesus has all authority, and then am I discipling that person? Am I multiplying myself? Am I replacing myself? It makes sense. Jesus went into heaven, I mean, I know he's with us, but Jesus goes into heaven and he left his apostles. The apostles then, multiplying to 3,000 and to 5,000. It just says multiplying after that. It doesn't even give numbers after that. But they're constantly replacing people. If we don't replace folks, if we don't disciple and guide folks to grow in that way, one, physically, we're not going to have a group anymore. And second, we're really going to be hard up to contribute to the Great Commission.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. It's funny because a lot of times, you mentioned cliche earlier. We talk about, I want to make quality disciples. Well, we know that comes with a quantity of time.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's got to go to the grocery store, but he's got to go sit with me in a restaurant to see how I act to that waitress that maybe doesn't do what she or he, waiter, is supposed to do. They need to see how I, spend time with family, with friends, the way I deal with my bills. I mean, it's that over time kind of concept that I think is really important.
Yeah.
I want to, as we kind of wrap up, we've made a loop, so I think our Bible class is about up. But
I've done that since I was 19, so that was cool.
That was fun. Is there any last thoughts, as you think about going to the lost sheep, or people that have tasted? I think about those passages that Jesus said it would have been better for them not to have known. And I think, man, what does that even mean? And I don't want to get into layers of hell or whatever else that could possibly mean, but I see God's heart for people, and even for those ones that have tasted Him and known it, but like you said, life happens, time happens, hurts, hang-ups, heartache, whatever it is, eventually somebody falls away. What's your kind of wrap-up final thoughts on all this as far as seeking those people that have once known? I wanted to say this too, because I remember doing a conference with you, and I love this. One of the things you said was sometimes it's Christians that need that second touch from Christ. It's the very people that have already been touched that need that second touch. And so that's hung with me for a long time, because I thought, man, that's true. Not only of, sometimes we're like, well, yeah, that brother over there. I mean, for me, I've needed that boost, that second time, so sorry, I wanted to say that quote, but I'll give you the last word. What do we need to wrap up
There's
with?
a couple of things that come to mind. We're a little bit after Father's Day or week. You and I were talking about our dads the other day. So it kind of, he's been on my mind a lot. But my dad, there were a couple of things came to mind. One, we would leave church on Sunday, and we had to drive somewhere to go eat lunch, because Mom was in food service, so he wasn't about to have her cook. Okay, so so sometimes we would drive, depending on what you wanted, 15 minutes up to 45 minutes, just depending on where you wanted to go. And so but that time was always spent. I loved it because it was just the three of us. My siblings were all out of the house. That was just the three of us for those few minutes. And he would ask, hey, what'd you think about, when I was little, it was about Sunday school. As I got older, it was about the sermon. If we had a guest speaker or someone come in, and what'd you think about this? And he would, if someone came in and had a really, this is the early 80s, a patriotic moral majority, rah, rah, America. I remember that one of those in particular where he didn't ask that day. He said, hey, if the message can't preach in his language, the darkest parts of whatever continent, the poorest of the poor sections of whatever city, then we don't need to be preaching it. He said, and so he didn't let me have a chance that day. But usually he would say, what'd you hear? What'd you think? And I would tell him, and he would say, okay, is that for you or somebody else? It was a trick question, because it's both.
Sure.
But he would always say, you process it, using today's language, you would process it first for you. We don't go listening for something for someone else necessarily. Like you said, that person needs to hear that. Well, that person needs to hear that. What we do is we process it for ourselves. Then in our relationships, we see where we can step out in love and say, hey, this person needs this message or this touch. That's one thing in mind. Another one is urgency. When he was a little boy, the lady that became his stepmom, she was visiting with my granddad, and her deal was This is in the middle of depression. You know, she's a woman out on her own. But her deal breaker was, you got to let me take him to church. My dad. He was a little toddler at the time. You got to let me take him to church. Do we have an urgency that the world needs this, first of all, and then do our brothers and sisters need that second touch? The third thing, and I guess this is urgency as well, is when I look at John 14, 15, 16, between washing of feet, which was a practical service, dirty feet in Palestine. It wasn't super spiritual at the time. It became spiritual.
Yeah, sure.
But
yeah.
it was just, there was a need there, to the beginning of the prayer that Jesus prays about our unity with him, each other, things like that. There was this urgency. You need this. This is your comforter. This is going to be your reminder. This is going to be, and we got to have that urgency. We're real comfortable. I'm literally, right now, we're driving in one of the most comfortable places on the planet for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I drive out here just to drive out here and walk around. But I can't be comfortable in my urgency when people need to know, or, like we said, to get to know again who Jesus is.
That second touch.
I've had people make a decision to cut me loose. I've had people make a decision to go after me. I've made decisions before that cut people loose. I've made decisions before to go after people. It's up to us. Do we have an urgency to let folks know that Jesus wants them and loves them? I hate when I go places and people won't get to know Jesus because of people that have represented him.
Yeah.
I used to say, well, that's their problem. You can't push people any further away. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. You sure can. By doing nothing, you push people further away. So let's make a decision, man. Go in all the world and then keep going.
Yeah.
And help folks know. And I got preachy. Sorry about that.
No, that's good. Why don't you come forward to 16 and see, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I like it. I like it. Well, I remember.
I guess I had a ready recollection. I don't.
That's so. I was thinking about dude, a hero of mine, Jerry Tallman, when he said one of the things he would talk about was you either need to be kind of out there. Let's see, how did it go? You need to be out there winning them, or let's see, meeting them, winning them, or keeping them. I think that was kind of his, and I think sometimes I feel like we're really, really strong on the keeping them, but at the same time, I think as a nation, as we see our numbers begin to dwindle, and it's not just people dying off, because we're birthing a lot of babies in the church, both physically and spiritually. But man, sometimes we kind of see a lot of people. We see a lot of people that leave, and we just kind of unfortunately let them go. And part of, I think, one of the challenges we face too in West Texas, where there's a church on every corner, is they're going over there to that place. We just assume that they didn't fall away from the Lord. They fell over to name any other congregation. But the reality is, too often they're out. And I think this is especially important in COVID, when I haven't seen you since March, so I don't know if you're watching online. I don't know if you're spiritually growing or if you're just out.
Yeah. And I know you're speaking metaphorically, but one thing that I'm excited about, a group that I'm meeting with a group on Sunday mornings, and we started meeting 3 weeks before COVID hit, 3 weeks before everyone's spring break. And it's like, well, that was a fun church plant.
How funny.
We lasted 3 weeks, but one of our goals is, as we kind of spend time in the Word and prayer, finding ourselves right now, is there's people that we want to, and we get uncomfortable with this language nowadays. I'm using old language. There's people we would like to go after. There's people that we want to see, how can we help you? How can we, sometimes they're folks that might have taught us. Sometimes they're folks that, have influenced us for the good. But that's one thing that we're grappling with right now, as we seeing how we're operating in our local culture, and things like that. But that's got to be there. Well, it may look different at every place. A bigger city, a smaller town, a different country, it may look different, but ultimately it's got to be there. The desire's got to be there, and hopefully it'll stay there. when we're doing it from the beginning, it'll be in the DNA. So
That's good. Well, it has been so much fun driving around with you.
It's cool.
I enjoyed it. It was definitely something different. I pray that you've been blessed, church, and and James as well, obviously. But the challenge, obviously, is to go to the lost sheep. So think about people. Maybe pray that God would put somebody on your heart and connect with them. Let them know. I've met with people that I didn't really know that well, but because somebody reached out, they came back. And so in the end, we can't really control other people's response, but we can show them God's love. And so the challenge is to be somebody that would go and find that person, not just a person that's unchurched, but somebody maybe that has been churched that's fallen away and really needs that second touch. So be blessed this week as you try to be God's light to those around you.
Have a great week.
He was teaching the truth.